Well, hello everybody. I just want to let you know I'm setting up a final stream. I want to test some equipment out, make sure that it's all dialed in. So far, it seems to be working really, really well with this new setup. I've invited a guest to come on today, Johnny B. Hopefully, he'll be joining me soon. We're going to discuss our upcoming show. I don't really have anything specifically to necessarily go over. I'm just hoping to see if I can get I'd like to get several people into the live chat if I can. I just want to see if that's going to affect my connection issues or make sure my laptop is strong enough to handle that. I don't get lag issues and things like that. So the topic is really pretty open, pretty much up for discussing anything today. Um, I may not even keep this up on my channel. Just depends on how things go. But really, I'm just trying to test out some equipment. So please do if you decide to check this out. Jump into the live panel if you're willing to. You don't have to use your camera. You don't even have to say anything technically if you don't want to. I just want to try and get as many people into the panel as possible to see if that affects my connection issues. So I did have a really nice talk on Skeptic Philosophy's channel. For those of you who don't know, I would recommend looking into him. It's at Skeptic Philosophy, spelled with a K, Skeptic, and then Philosophy, no space. He's a really nice gentleman. I've met him. Gosh, I think I met him through Captive Desk's channel. For any of you who don't know Dave, he is a really neat guy, and he does a great job on his channel. I think his feature show is called Saturday Night at the Atheist. I believe that's what he calls it. And I have been extremely busy. I had a lot of medical problems, which is previously, which is why I was on YouTube so much. But now that I'm finally healthy enough to get back to work, I haven't been on as much, and I haven't been on one of Dave's streams in quite a while. But I really miss talking to him. Tilting Windmill, he's one of his mods, and Tilting Windmill, he just seems like such a fantastic person. So a lot of you probably know who I'm talking about. Let me see. It looks like somebody's watching. I don't know who that is. If you feel like jumping on the panel or not, but you'll be more than welcome to. I'm trying to get as many people as possible. I know Johnny's coming in at some point, but at any rate, yeah, Tilting Windmill seems like a super solid person. I see him a lot on James Apperson's channel as well. So it's nice to engage with him. But I just haven't been able to catch very many of the live streams. I used to be on all the time because I was recovering from surgery, so I was home all day, every day. But now that I'm actually trying to, get back into my routine, get back to work, get back to the gym regularly, I just don't have as much time, and I do miss it. Mark Reed is another channel I like to catch up with. Ember, I think she calls her channel Better Than Ember, if I remember right. Mark Reed and Ember were very gracious to do a debate review of one of the debates that I had done against full preterist Christian nationalist. I think he goes by William. I can't remember. I think his name was William. But we had a really good debate. I had a real strong performance in that debate, and I'm probably going to at some point upload some of the footage, if not the full debates that I've been involved in, onto my channel. I did reach out to the brother Tristan Gabriel. For those of you who don't know his channel, it's 21st Century Minds. I definitely recommend checking them out. He's a really solid guy. He's done me a lot of favors. He and I get along really well. He said that I could use whatever content I want off his channel, and I'm not sure. I know there's another gentleman, A's Philosophy, who hosted a debate that I was in, who'd be more than willing to let me use that content. So I don't know if I need permission from people if I'm actually featured in the video. I don't know how that fair use stuff works on YouTube, so I've got some research I need to do. I see people pulling clips all the time and doing like reaction videos and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if they need permission to do that, and they're just, hoping that the people who actually build those videos haven't noticed. But I don't know. I'll have to look into it. I think Johnny is getting ready to jump on here pretty soon. Like I said, I'm just going to reiterate, if anybody feels like jumping into the live panel, I'm actually trying to do a test right now. So I'm hoping to get multiple people involved in here just to see if it causes me any lag issues or anything like that I need to shore up my equipment a little bit. So I'm kind of just winging this here. Excuse me. I guess I could talk a little bit about the conversation I just had on Skeptic Philosophy's channel. He wanted to interview me about my model for objective morality. I understand that as an agnostic, the objective moral position is an outlier position. Most atheists and agnostics are they're either moral relativists or maybe moral anti-realists, some non-cognitivists, but they ultimately believe in subjective morality. And I do find it very interesting. I mean, I think there's really strong arguments to be made on both sides, which is why this is an ongoing debate. It's a debate that's been happening for a couple thousand years, if not longer. And there really isn't a definitive answer in philosophy. So, is morality objective or subjective? There's so many ways to approach the topic. One of the things is do we separate morality from ethics? Because what I do find when I start having one-on-one conversations with people is that as you start to raise the arguments and the problems with each position, I find a lot of people on the subjective side tend to migrate towards the middle, where they then say, okay, well, the ethics can be objective, and then they still hold that the morality can be subjective, or they might say that there's an objective standard, for like murder or slavery or some of the bigger ones, but there's other subjective claims that we make to morality. So it's kind of a finding more of a middle ground, and I could see that position. I don't take the middle ground. I do think it is objective. However, I think that maybe that might be the ultimate solution to figuring out the actual solution to the problem itself. Is there kind of a little bit of both going on? Is it can both objective and subjective? And again, that's not a position that I hold. I see that as being having its own problems, to be honest with you. But I think there is an interesting, as I've been studying philosophy more and more, there's there are philosophers who realize that there are certain things that it's really hard to just make black and white, to create a true dichotomy and say that it has to be this way. Free will is one example. There's some interesting philosophers that I've been looking at recently. In fact, I just was going over some Epicurus the other night, and he came up with this. When he came from the deterministic side of things, he still wanted to have free will, even though his philosophical view is that things ultimately can be judged empirically. And so he came up with the swerve concept, and which is interesting. If you haven't looked into Epicurus, it's a really, there's a lot of, we're even finding now that there's kind of this modern Epicureanism, and people are kind of looking back at his philosophical views. There's, in fact, that's something that'd be fascinating to do a video on. The idea, I can't think of the word he used specifically for it, but basically there's like this maximally good point. Once you hit what is considered to be like happiness, right, or peace, then you can't go any further. And it turns out, according to his view, that the peace and happiness is really just overcoming pain and suffering, right? That's all it really is. And so as long as you're not in pain, as long as you're not suffering, then you've reached the highest level of happiness and peace that you can actually be at. And anything else is just becomes variety at that point. So I think a good example that he uses would be like food. So we think of like fine dining and exquisite cuisine and things of this nature, right? Well, all we're really trying to do when we eat is to overcome hunger, right? So overcoming hunger, once we've overcome hunger, we are satiated, our appetite is satisfied, then we know we cannot overcome hunger any further than that. So a basic meal of bread and maybe some fresh fruit, or something of this nature, whatever the most basic sustenance that you could think of that would still be healthy and provide the body with the nutrients that it needs. Once you have attained that, a fine meal doesn't give you any more peace or happiness, because you've already overcome the suffering of hunger. And it's a really interesting approach, because we tend to, especially in modern society, and it's interesting because Epicurus is around, I think, around the fourth century before the Common Era, around the 340s or something like that. And so, that's a long time ago. And here we are in today's society. Everybody seems to want more, right? We always want more, more, more. We can never get enough. And if we step back from the situation, we tend to realize, if we're critical thinkers, right, and we're willing to be honest with ourselves, we tend to see that um, getting more of something inherently tends to bring more problems. Money's a great example. Going from that point to where you're struggling to pay your bills, you're struggling to for basic necessities, clothing and shelter, and paying the getting food and all these basic necessities. When you finally start making enough money to where suddenly you don't have to worry about those basic necessities anymore, you're far from being rich, but you just don't have to worry about the bills each month. Well, there's this level of peace suddenly that the roof is over your head, the food is on your plate, the clothes are on your back, and you have attained this wonderful freedom from the stress of your finances. Then you start making a little bit more money, right? And you start thinking about the things that you don't have, right? So I have a car, I have a nice car. It's a new car and it runs perfectly well. It's reliable, but it's not a Mercedes, or it's not a Ferrari, or whatever standard you want. And so you start thinking about how now suddenly you feel like you're missing out on something. You don't have enough, right? And this is something that goes on within ourselves, and it's a struggle, because then we start trying to attain more. But do we really need that? Are our goals really satisfying a real need or serving a real purpose, right? Or are they just opening up more problems? Because now I get the Mercedes, but I only have the base level Mercedes. Well, then I want the top line Mercedes. And then I'm driving a Mercedes, and my neighbor, he's now suddenly driving an Aston Martin, and suddenly my Mercedes doesn't look as good. Or my neighbor just pulled up with a brand new boat. And so it becomes this constant struggle to just keep adding more. You just want to keep getting more and more, and suddenly enough is never enough. And Epicurus, his model really provides a solution to that, is to step back from the situation and identify, are my needs met? Have I relieved myself from the pain of being hungry? Have I relieved myself from the pain of being able to commute to and from work? My car good enough? The food on my plate, is it good enough? Or do I need to be going out to eat every night, fine dining? And so if we start to embrace the simple things in life, is oftentimes how we refer to it, and understand that is we've now achieved the maximal amount of joy and peace that really we can achieve. Anything else is just going to be adding variety to life. And they do say variety is the spice of life, right? And so, I can see an argument to be made for that. But I also, through my own personal experiences, like with money, the more money I have, then suddenly the more problems I have, because the more money I want, right? Just getting to that point to where I can pay all my bills, it was wonderful for a time, but then suddenly you start wanting more. You start thinking about what you don't have. And so, free will, which is what I was on that tangent there. But with the free will model, this can be something that we see. Maybe we know for sure that there's a deterministic side to life, right? That we call it causation, right? And so if one action necessarily causes another, has a result, right, that puts us into a specific situation, then another action specifically leads to another situation. And with the deterministic view, when we look backwards, we say, well, it couldn't be any other way. I'm here because I had to be here, because my choices is what got me here. My position that I'm at currently was determined by my previous choices. So there's definitely an argument to be made for determinism. But we feel, at least, that we are making choices all along the way, especially when we look forward, right? When we're looking backward, we see all the determination. But when we look forward, we see, I have all these choices in front of me. So which path am I going to go down? There's choice. And I've heard philosophers and authors talk about, kind of separate the will concept into, we have conscious choices or conscious decisions that we make, and then we have the deterministic view. But there is no such thing as free, quote unquote, will, free will, actual free. Because when you say free, you put free in front of will, you're adopting an entire set of core values there that nothing, and we know nothing is totally free because we have so much evidence of the determined position that we're in. Our choices put us here, right? The saying is, you make your bed, now you have to lie in it, right? So what someone like Epicurus might say is that both of these things can actually coexist, even though they seem diametrically opposed. Free will and determinism seem diametrically opposed. There's actually this middle ground that we need to allow the conversation for. I see another area where it comes to Spinoza talking about what was it? He was talking about the finite and the infinite, right? If we live in an infinite timeline, how do we ever get a finite decision? If there's really infinite time, how do we get to where we are right now? Now, there's other theories that apply to that. In particular, time theories. The B theory of time actually really helps to kind of understand how we can get to where we are. If the past, present, and future already exist within the fabric of time, and we're simply localized in one particular moment at a time, then it's not so hard to understand how we got here. But before the B theory of time came about, Spinoza was talking about this combination of the finite choice within the infinite possibility of choices. And so you're finding how two diametrically opposed things can actually work together. You can find how they can kind of be mapped together. And it's very interesting. And I'm wondering if the morality issue is it going to be another one of those areas where we find out that, yeah, there is a certain objective standard because certain actions have predetermined consequences that will result from any particular action, right? There's a set of consequences that will naturally arise. And so when we think about it in that way, moral decisions can be based on something like that. And we can look at an objective standard. But we also see that we have subjective views, right? And we build not just individuals, but we build entire societies on different subjective views. I mean, there was a time when slavery was considered to be perfectly moral. In fact, in the North Atlantic slave trade, the Christians, by the way, justified enslaving the Africans because they felt like they were one of the benefits of enslaving them, or at least the claim, was that they were bringing them to the Christian religion, right? And so therefore they're enslaving people and taking away their humanity and their dignity was somehow and then suddenly morally justified. Now, fortunately, we've evolved beyond that point. Now, as a moral realist, I understand that slavery is wrong because it's wrong. It's just flat wrong. You don't have there is no, well, it's only wrong in certain societies, or it's only wrong in a particular time period or whatever. No, slavery is just wrong because it's wrong. You're taking away people's agency, you're taking away their freedom and well-being. And as moral agents ourselves, it would be illogical for us to say that it's okay to take freedom and well-being away from another moral agent. So to me, the whole thing just breaks down. From the subjective view, completely breaks down. But even if we just adopt the subjective view for a minute and say, there are people who can look at this situation, this slavery situation, and say, I don't like the way this makes me feel, so I'm going to say it's wrong. Somebody else can say, well, I don't care, I'm going to say it's right. And that's the subjective view. But at least some people will definitely look at that and say, it's wrong. Now, we know that there's been a global abolition of slavery as far as law codes go. Now, I want to be clear. We know there's still forms of slavery. There are still people being enslaved today. Just because it's illegal in every single country doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But, so there may be this meta standard when it comes to a few core claims. And then there might be a subset of standards that could be subjective. I think it's an interesting conversation to have at the very least. So I'm just kind of trying to fill air here while I'm waiting. I think Johnny is supposed to be reaching out, but maybe I don't know if this actually video is even going to my YouTube channel. He sent me a message. Let's see what's happening here. Oh, I haven't posted the link in the chat. That's hilarious. I'm such an idiot. I'm such a noob at this. Okay, comments. That's so funny. Okay, so where is the link? Okay. That is hilarious. Man, I'm glad I looked at my phone. I could have gone on for an hour, probably just talking to myself here. Let's see. So copy in the chat. That is hilarious. I'm so embarrassed. What I need is somebody who knows what they're doing to run this ship, and I'll just sit back and talk. Okay, so I've got that posted. That is hilarious. Oh, Ambush the Pot State's here. Nice. Absolutely. Yeah, if you want to jump in now that I finally figured out that that a link is really helpful for that. You've been somebody that I've been wanting to catch up with. I'm going to show this. Not that one. Here he is right here. Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know already, I would definitely recommend checking out this gentleman's channel, Ambush the Pot State. He does a great job on his channel. He really went at it with Kent Hovind. And in fact, he was involved in the ARC protest that they did. I think was that last summer you guys did that? So, Johnny, dude, that is so funny. I was just going on and on. I was deep thinking. I didn't realize I needed to post a link in the chat. That is so funny.
Yeah, we were all in the comments going, yeah, we need the link. And then Joel's like, oh, he's not looking at the chat. He can't hear us. So I was like, I'll go to Discord and I'll just spam him until he sees what I'm going to say. I tried calling you twice, and then I realized, oh, you're on your computer. You probably may not even have your phone.
that is so funny. I'm such an idiot. I can't believe it.
Sorry. Look, you're new to this now. Okay.
So. Yeah, definitely. I just figured out how to highlight these comments here. My God, that is funny. I wonder how long I would have gone on. You know, it was another brother. What does he go by? Bionic Latino. When I did my very, very first test video, my audio wasn't working apparently, and I had no idea. And I was talking. I must have been going on for, I think, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. And he came into the chat and he's like, "Hey, just so you know, nobody can hear anything." And I was like, "What?" It was so funny. So I left the video up on my channel because it makes me laugh every time I see it. I was just going on, and in fact, I talked to him last night, and he says, "Yeah, it looked like you were really into something important."
Yeah. We were just waiting. We were like, I wonder when he's gonna see the chat.
Yeah, that is too much. I need to start paying more attention. I'm a little bit, I'll be honest with you. I didn't get quite enough sleep last night. I did not plan on being up that late. I decided to just set up a test just for the hell of it. I don't even know what motivated me to do it. And then that brother jumped in, and we ended up talking for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, okay, pretty cool.
It was a good conversation. It was a really good conversation. Obviously, I had to actually stop. I had to stop us because I was like, we could probably go on for another hour here if I don't put my foot down and hard stop this thing. But I did want to say thank you very much for jumping onto Skeptic's channel. That was a really good talk. I don't know, did you catch the whole interview?
I caught from like 30 minutes and up.
It was a good one. I feel kind of bad because with my debate coming up, there's just a lot of stuff that I couldn't say because I don't want to give out all the information right on top of my debate with Mark. Yeah. And I did tell Skeptic when he first reached out to me, I said, yeah, I'd like to do it. But I actually told him that I wanted to do it after my debate so I didn't have to hold anything back. But he seemed to either he forgot that or he just really was looking to get some content onto his channel because his channel's new. And I was happy to help him. I was honored that he would consider me, that he wanted to reach out to me and hear what I had to say. It's always nice to be thought of, in positive ways.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a good debate. It seemed like everybody had a lot of different points they wanted to bring up, and that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I really appreciate the pushback. There wasn't. I'm trying to think back now. I'm going to rewatch the video and see, because one of the benefits for me doing that is that I get multiple different angles to consider.
Yeah.
Or what I might face from Mark. But I don't think I heard anything I hadn't heard before. At this point, I've had this conversation enough times with people. I've pretty much heard all the standard models for subjective morality, and I've heard people kind of, because if they haven't studied the models formally, then they might take a piece out of one and take a piece out of another and kind of just mash it together. So I've heard some different views, but I'm pretty familiar at this point with most of the objections to the objective moral position.
Mhm.
And I do see how, intuitively, you can say, well, because morals have changed over time, it must be subjective if you just kind of look at it from that perspective. But that's a pretty narrow view of the subject, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's like there's more to it than just that.
Yeah, and that's when you really get into the argument. And there have been some people who have raised, and this is one of the things I brought up in my last debate, where you when you take a position, if you're going to take the subjective view, either one, whichever side, objective or subjective, whichever view you take, I'd mentioned this on Skeptic's channel. I don't know if you saw it or not, but one thing that I've noticed is that the people who take the subjective view, they have a pretty strong arguments to make against the objective view, but they don't have very strong arguments to support their own position.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? It's really hard because you have to build, when you take a stance on something, then you assume a burden of proof. And once you assume that burden of proof, then you've got to actually put the work in to justify your position. And oh, hey, there we go. Joe's in here. Joe, listen, brother, I'm trying to test out my equipment right now. I wasn't really planning on having any set topic. I'm hoping that I can get multiple people to join this live panel. I think I have the link in the chat.
If there's not a set topic, can I talk about something?
Anything you want. Just don't give away too much for next week's
Oh,
show.
I don't
Yeah.
plan on giving away too much. I want to do a little test, okay? Because G-Man couldn't do this, so I want to know if this is just something that's on him or if this is everybody, okay? So I'm going to read you a verse from the Bible, Isaiah 49, and I want you to tell me who the servant is, okay? Can you do that?
Yeah. Now I'm really familiar with the suffering servant passages, so it's gonna be hard for me to pretend like I don't know already. But go ahead.
Isaiah 49:3, and he said to me, "You are my servant, Israel, in whom I will be glorified." Who's a servant in Isaiah 49?
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that it's Israel.
Yeah, the fact that G-Man just kept saying it's Jesus, it's Jesus. I'm like, no, it's literally not. It tells you right there. This is the problem that I find with Christians that I talk to, is that they haven't actually read all of Second Isaiah. They've only read They've only read like maybe two chapters, and that's it. When the author in 53 is expecting that you've read the whole thing to understand what 53 is talking about. You can't just read a single page from a book and say, "Oh, I know what this is," And no, you have to read the whole thing to actually understand what's going on.
The Bible, because it's got so many different authors and there's so many different, each author has their own agenda. There's some things, like when you get into the prophets and stuff like that, you do get kind of a consistent theme, because when you take into consideration that portion of the Bible was really written for a specific period of time during the exile period and then into the Persian period. And so when you take that period historically, you do get some continuity there, but you still get differences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Within, because you have different authors and different voices, and it's impossible to know, which is really the most frustrating thing for everybody. It's impossible to know how much interpolation there has been. You know what I mean? How much has been taken out and removed, and how much has been added, because the whole study, the field of textual criticism, is a really tough field.
Yeah, it is. But and like for example, and this is the thing about like just Isaiah in general. Isaiah is split up into three different parts because there are at least two different authors. I don't know if 2 and 3 are different authors, but I know that Isaiah and Second Isaiah are two completely different authors, unless Isaiah lived to be at least 200 years old. And it's funny because when you read First Isaiah, it's talking about things that are happening before and during the Assyrian invasion. But then when you get to Second Isaiah, it completely switches to things that are happening in the Babylonian exile. Like
Right.
it completely switches the narrative. And I actually saw this yesterday. A Christian that was on Justin's channel was bringing up how they found the Great Isaiah Scroll, and he thinks that it somehow debunks the first Deutero and third Isaiah, theory, and I'm like, no, it doesn't, because if you actually look at the, and Justin said this too, but if you actually look at the Great Isaiah Scroll, it's very clear that whoever copied this down was leaving room to differentiate the different sections. They were splitting it up so people could just have a whole manuscript for it, but that they could tell that these were different sections of it because they were leaving spaces in between the different sections. So whoever copied it had access to all three Isaiahs, but they made sure to keep it that it was three different sections in general.
Did the theist respond by trying to suggest or imply that it was for artistic purposes, like with the long ending of Mark, the
I'm
excuse
not.
they used?
I don't remember if that's what he responded with. He was on a lot of different topics. It seemed like.
Yeah, you get that a lot. Yeah, you made a few different points, which are all very interesting. The so when I look at when I have the conversations and when I watch conversations between skeptics and theists, I see you get this cognitive dissonance with the theists,
Yeah.
and that's one of my biggest problems with religion. I've said it before. I'm not necessarily out to deconvert people because I think there are people who, for whatever reason, actually need to be religious.
Oh yeah.
There's people who get over trauma. There's people who overcome drugs and alcohol. There's other reasons, and I hate to say it, but there's probably a lot of really, really bad people in this world that are only not axe murderers because they think there's an angry guy up in the sky who throws lightning bolts at axe murderers. You know what I mean? If it
Yeah.
wasn't for
Something
that
like.
belief, they'd be out there doing terrible shit.
Yeah.
And you never know who you're talking with. And
Yeah.
how crazy would it be to deconvert somebody and then you feel so good about it, and then you find out they ended up becoming a Unabomber or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's
It's
just,
pretty bad. Yeah.
yeah, you never know. And so because of oh, here we got somebody, Chris Moore. Oh, outstanding. Yeah, Chris Moore, always welcome. Hey, brother.
Whoops, I was muted.
No, welcome to the stage. I'm so glad you guys joined. I'm trying to get as many people as I can up here because I'm testing my equipment and I want to make sure that if there's a limit of people, if that overloads my system or something, because I'm not sure how all that works. So far, everything seems to be working smoothly.
StreamYard, usually, I think it's like, what, 7 or 10? Restream about the same load. And, yeah, that's usually like how many people you can accommodate, quote unquote. But yeah. But like if you want a conversation, it's usually the best practices. It's up to 4 people, because otherwise it's just like, because it doesn't have the hands up type of thing. And I'm kind of comparing this as to Zoom, because it's like Zoom was more used to like a classroom friendly type of thing, while StreamYards, it's more of a like casual, like application, I guess. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm gonna shut up right now.
No, no, not that's really valuable input, and I think you're absolutely right. I've used Zoom quite a bit for business meetings and stuff like that, so I'm familiar with that. One of the problems with doing it like this is that a lot of people, myself included, we don't always use our microphones. Excuse me, our cameras. And
Yeah,
so if you can't see that somebody's trying to talk or in the middle of making a gesture or something, then it can lead to a lot of confusion and over talking and stuff. You're absolutely right about that.
yeah. That's why I say that they should add a hands up button or something like that. But that's just me. So
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It'd be a nice feature. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. With Zoom, you have it. You've even got it on Discord. You could do the same thing. You can, I guess, like you said, raise the hand and let people know you're trying to get a word in edgewise.
yeah. But anyway, I kind of been scrolling on your videos, shorts more mostly, and yeah, not sure if like we fall on the same like categorical fence side of the fence, but either way,
Yeah, I really haven't put a whole lot of thought into too much. I have just really everything I have up on my channel has mostly just been for the purposes of testing things. I was amazed that those shorts blew up like they did pretty much overnight. I can't believe couple of them are well over 1,000 views, and so I was pleased with the interaction, but I haven't really, yeah, like I said, I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into the content yet. I was just testing the equipment to see just what this is going to take to actually function.
Well, the algorithm currently as it stands is more suited for short formatted stuff that's basically like under 15 to like 5 to 15 minutes usually, and that's not how for me I kind of do things, because I like to have a half an hour, well, 20 minutes video, but that's usually like the ballpark of what's going on these days. That a lot of people are just kind of chugging up shorts, and that's how the algorithm works.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then again, that's how you use your brain and just take what you can get and just fish for the videos that you want. So anyway.
I see Joel has jumped in, and I see Ambushed Apostate, and I'm so embarrassed. My memory is so bad. I did way too many drugs when I was younger. I'm trying to remember. I believe Ambushed Apostate. I believe his name is Seth, but I could be wrong about that. And I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. But Ambushed Apostate, I have been wanting to catch up with you. So if you're still around, you should definitely join the panel, and Joel as well. I'd love to have you jump on to the panel if you feel so inclined. Nobody's obligated, obviously, but if anybody wants to jump on, just say hello. If anybody has a particular talking point or topic they want to discuss, this is really open. I'm just trying to test the equipment. So anybody is really more than welcome. As always, I just try to ask everyone to be polite, but with the people that I see in here who I know, that's not going to be an issue.
Another thing is that, like, and we kind of talked about this earlier on Skeptics a little bit, not really the specific thing, but we talked about Matthew and things like that. But Judas is the Hellenistic form of Judah. And so, well, I guess I don't really know if it's like a scholarly thing that people are talking about, but it's a rising talking point, is that Judas in the Bible is actually a representation of the people of Judah who basically turned on Jesus because he was claiming to be somebody he wasn't, and they wanted him executed and stuff, which is actually a really clever way that they wrote that. If that's the case, it's really clever that they made that a thing.
Well, I've been just basically been viewing like a video about the subject, about the trial and Pharisees and all that kind of jazz from from the historical point of view of the trials of Jesus and all that stuff. It's from a channel called SideQuest. It's an animated like channel and stuff like that. And the thing is that I kind of find it funny that that essentially the overarching like story of those trials is that they basically put Pontius Pilate under the bus, and also the some of the Pharisees under the bus, because it's just kind of assumes that um, the quote unquote internal conflict of Pontius Pilate, knowing that Jesus is innocent. But another thing is that Pontius Pilate, as a Roman citizen, is not, you know, at the time like Christian and all that stuff. But the internal logic of the Christian kind of super imposed the bias that's saying that he should have known better. But for all intents and purposes, he's an outsider. So it's like the
Yeah.
writers just like threw threw that character under the bus because the plot demands it. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like in real life, so basically all we really know about like the historical Jesus is that he was a real person. He lived, and he possibly claimed to be the Messiah, although we don't really actually know if that's what he claimed or not. We know that he led a group of people in what is essentially a messianic cult, and
Yep.
it's like an apocalyptic doomsday cult, preaching, hey, the end of the world's coming. Um, but we don't really fully know what they were actually teaching. We only have what the Gospels say they were saying, pretty much. But like Pontius Pilate, just based on who he was, wouldn't, there's no way that he would have ever like taken it easy on Jesus.
No way.
He'd want Jesus dead because of what like obviously I don't think anybody should be executed just because they claim to be a king or whatever, but that was the acceptable punishment in his time period, and so
Yeah.
Pilate would want him dead. There's no question.
Well, the biggest problem, yeah, and I think the thing that the reason I've always rejected the crucifixion narrative when it comes to that whole story is because Pilate, if you really read the existential writings from the time, Pilate was he. There's no way, unless everybody else writing about Pilate was wrong. There's literally no way that Pilate would have capitulated to the Jews. The Jews
Yeah.
are not going. He didn't care about a mob of angry people who wanted this guy crucified. There was no tradition to release criminals back into society. All of that was just completely so obviously fabricated.
Yeah, I mean,
And you've got two different methods of what they call tropes and stuff at play there. First of all, you've got the story, the tradition of what's called the scapegoat tradition. And if you look at the fact that the story is written with two Jesuses, one takes on the sin of the world, one gets to go free, it really, really just looks like they just took that scapegoat tradition and just wrote it right into the story.
yeah,
And then you have the other element that's been really well discussed more recently, like Dr. Robin Faith Walsh and some others. Tabor has done some work on it, but Price. I mean, there's been a number of people who have actually gone into this where, oh, excellent, Joe's here, who've talked about how the Gospels are literally just fashioned after the Greek epics. And when you look at the Greek epics, like the Iliad, for example, the Odyssey and things of that nature, stories of Homer and stuff, or from Homer, and you go read like Paul's adventures on the high seas and the shipwreck and stuff. It literally it all makes sense.
Yeah. But my point is that what about Pontius Pilate is that you got a polytheistic hedonist, and he's in Roman, kind of go by the circular logic of the good book. Is it on an internal circular logic? Sorry, operating on a circular logic. If you and I would basically go to the Middle East and basically just kind of be in the same exact position, and we would. Sorry for just kind of putting it as on time, but it's like how we were judged Islam Muslims. Do you think that our internal logic would the same? They would you we would the populace expect us to basically operate the by their terms of logic, even though if we are outsiders? I don't know if I'm making any sense, but anyway, but like I said, it's basically because it's because it's in the Bible, using the logic of the Bible to basically justify itself. I'm going for basically a Peter Griffin's "It's Justified Itself" or something like that. Anyway, so yeah.
Joe, welcome. It's so good to see you. I haven't got a chance to talk to you in quite a while. I've been so busy with work. I was just telling everybody that all the channels I usually follow, because of my work schedule and getting back in the gym and trying to get healthy from all those surgeries, I haven't been able to catch up with any of your guys' live streams. So tell me what's going on. What's been the latest with you guys?
Well, I had planned to stream today and didn't. Robin and I did our political stream the other day. Other than that, I haven't been doing a lot either. I've got coming up several shows. I'm going to go be a guest on their show, but I haven't been doing a heck of a lot of streams here lately.
Now, do you have an actual a regular schedule that you prefer to keep, like at specific days and times, or you just kind of do it whenever you get inspired to do it?
I try to do Thursday at 1 p.m. for the political show, and Saturday at 3 p.m. for my regular streams, where we just have a guest on and talk with other atheists. Usually, there for a couple months, I was just doing debates on Saturdays.
And you're Central Time, right?
I'm pretty sure
Eastern.
Kentucky.
Oh,
No,
you are. Is it that far over? You're in the Eastern Time Zone.
Yeah, I'm Eastern time zone by a good bit.
Oh, I didn't even realize that time.
Part of
Okay,
Kentucky is in the Central time zone.
yeah, I
that's
thought.
what I thought. Okay.
Kentucky's a big state.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I didn't realize any of it was in the Eastern Time Zone though. So so you are Eastern. So okay, I'm trying to actively avoid bumping up against other people's schedules, but I think it's going to be impossible at some point because it seems like especially Saturdays are a busy day for everybody.
Yeah,
I have
That
Wednesdays off of work. I do go to the gym Wednesdays, but I don't go to my other job on Wednesdays, and then I have the weekends off. But so I was thinking about maybe doing something on Saturdays, but Saturdays are really seem to be very busy.
yeah. You see, I streamed on Sunday for years. Uh, well, for like a year and a half, I guess. I used to do all my streams on Sunday at 2 p.m. And for a long time, we did our show then, and it was great. And then all of a sudden, the line moved their show to Sunday at 2 p.m. and views and stuff went down, and so eventually I just was like, well, I'll switch the day or whatever. And I took a little break for a while, didn't do a whole lot, and then came back and started doing Saturdays. And you know, I think that it's great to try and work around other people's schedules because a lot of us share the same audience. But if if it's the time you have to stream and that's when you need to do it, I mean, no one's going to think you're doing it maliciously, I don't think, unless you are.
Right? No, no. I'm not even treating this as I know some people in the community do treat it as a business and they try to make money off of it, and that's perfectly legitimate reason to do it. In fact, it's probably the only really good reason. I do it because I want to engage in conversations where I try to find the middle ground, or try to find a respectful way to have conversations with people. That's a lot of people who know me already understand that. And so I'm just trying to promote more of that, and I wanted to build a channel that was really focused on that. And I do like to get a little bit more into philosophy. Religion is an interesting topic, and I do have a lot of an education background in religion, so it's something that I'm
Um,
qualified to discuss. But it just gets so much talking. Everyone's talking religion and stuff, so it seems like there's more out there to life than just that.
so with like channel monetization and stuff, um, I never really had any goals of monetizing my channel, but like as those features became available, I was of course like interested in what they had to offer because I had made it to this certain milestone or whatever, like I was interested in that. But it was really like it was the audience that requested the super chats and the members videos, and they wanted that stuff. And as for the ad revenue, like I don't my channel, I do I don't know, I do a couple thousand views a month usually, like and maybe 2 to 3 thousand views a month. I pick up, my channel's kind of plateaued. I still grow at like maybe 15 subscribers a month. But they, oh shit, I forgot what I was even getting at with that. Oh, the monetization. A lot of people asked for it. And then with the ad revenue, YouTube plays ads on my videos anyway. So I might as well get paid for those ads. Like, that's kind of how I looked at it. I don't, although I make money off YouTube, they have like a threshold. You have to make $100 to get paid, and you get paid once a month. And like, um, I don't even make that $100 every month to get paid. Because you have to have it by the first of the month to get paid on the 21st of the month. And I rarely even make that, but I just offer those things because people ask for them. Same thing with a merch store. I just have merch because people asked for it. They wanted those things.
Anyhow,
I do.
moral of the story: don't chase the
I'm
dragon.
sorry, I
Don't do
talked
it
too
for
much.
chasing the dragon.
Yeah,
I feel,
exactly.
I
Go
feel
ahead,
like a
Well,
Johnny.
sorry, I ramble.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But I feel like a lot of people like start off debating just for fun, and it kind of turns into a job. I feel like one of the debaters I watch the most is Justin from Deconstruction Zone, and for like the first year and a half he was doing it, he was an electrical engineer, and he wasn't making any money off it. And even when he started making money off it, he was still an electrical engineer until just like this year. Like towards the beginning of this year, he finally quit that job and then was able to just do like debating and stuff full time. But I feel like it usually just starts out for fun, and then people realize, well, I'm getting paid for this, so I could probably make it a job or something.
I don't think there's anything. In fact, I think it would be
Yeah, I
foolish
mean,
to just turn. Yeah, I think it'd be foolish to just walk away from essentially free money. If you're
Right.
already putting in the time and effort, and they're going to offer to monetize you, it would make no sense to not take that. Um, but I think that there are some people who set
yeah.
out. They have,
Well, I mean,
Go ahead.
I think
for live streamers though, those monetization things are ways to interact with your audience more, and you can look at it as a business. And I'm gonna I know if I say this, I'll get this percentage of people, and blah blah blah. You can do all that stuff. YouTube gives you the tools to do it. But if you're trying to like make a living or run a business off a YouTube channel, you've already messed up by picking like the atheist secular niche area to make videos.
Yeah. Basically, like unless you're apologists, you're essentially shadow banned from the
yeah.
from that politics or anything that has to do with politics. Usually, like what's called bread tube, or especially the left wing of things, because for some reason the right wingers get to milk all the benefits without the consequences. But hey, that's not neither there
Trouble
or
hearing
there.
his audio, or is it just me?
Oh, me?
No, I'm hearing everybody. Yeah, I'm hearing everybody. Skeptic Philosophy. I don't know if you're still
Oh,
in
okay.
the chat or
It
lurking,
must have
but yeah,
still
if you
me.
want to jump in the live panel, I'd love to have as many people. I'm trying to see
I
how
said
many people I can actually host.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
I'm
also
sorry for interrupting.
sorry. There's also the like the weapons reviews like channels that or just that happen. There's also like the the like medical stuff too. That's used to be under like the blacklist. But I'm just kind of weird like that,
Yeah.
especially yeah. Um, and what else? What else category that's usually a no no? Like, well, not a no no, but it's like the
How many
like your
atheist channels can you name?
I guess I've got
How
100.
many atheist channels can you name that have sponsorship deals? I'm sorry. There's a delay.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a lag, but not with the only lag I'm hearing is from Joe. It's from you, just a little bit of a delay. But everybody else, Johnny, will you say something?
potatoes.
Yeah, yeah. See,
Let
that's
me
great.
let me go out. Let me go out and come back and see if I can fix it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, and again, I'm not opposed to talking about religion. Like I said, it's something I've studied quite a bit about. I spent a lot of money, frankly, on learning religion, and so I should put some of that money to use. But it just seems like it's really difficult to get into a productive conversation. In fact, we were just starting to touch on this right before you jumped in, Chris. Is that Johnny and I were just starting to discuss the cognitive dissonance that we
Yeah.
see when like Johnny, he does a great job with pointing out some of the problems with like the messianic prophecies, for example. I've heard some of the arguments that Johnny runs, and he's absolutely in line with the scholarship on this.
And Aaron.
And if you have these conversations with a Christian or somebody who's determined that it has to be true, especially the fundamentalists, like they're determined that there can't be any contradictions in the Bible. They're determined the Bible can't have any historical errors. It doesn't matter what evidence you provide them. Literally, completely a waste of your time.
Or just applying common sense. Basically, by 21st century logic to the versus like whatever like time they're like the Bible is referring to. So or Quran or whatever Torah even I don't anyhow. It's just that I find that like especially conservative, I would say also fundamentalists. They're basically as soon as they you're talking about Bible stuff, they basically kind of eject the brain
Yeah.
and just kind of run on autopilot with the script. You know, with the like the cards, like the reading cards from the '60s, I think, or '70s. Just punch it in, and they just kind of like go like that, and it's just so annoying that it's like I have to essentially justify common sense.
Yeah.
Oh, on the issues,
Yeah, like,
and sorry.
no, go ahead.
So you wanted to say something, Johnny?
Well, so like for example, it's not really, I don't think it's not really in the Bible per se. It's more of a church tradition that Moses wrote wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. But the problem is that literally in the first book, Genesis, it mentions a place that didn't exist when he was alive. It didn't mention a place it mentions a place that didn't exist until around the early Iron Age called Dan. Dan did not exist until like over 100 years after Moses was already dead. Plus, Moses
Yep.
would have to have recorded his own death if he wrote it. And it also mentions that there were kings in Israel. Well, the first king in Israel was Saul. I think it was Saul. Could be mistaken. And that was for
No, I
100
don't think so.
years. Yeah, I could be mistaken on who it was, but it wasn't until over 100 years after Moses was dead. And whoever's writing it is talking as if there have been multiple kings in Israel. So that means that it couldn't have been written when Moses was alive. It had to have been written much later. It was written probably around the early Iron Age, around there. So I mean, that's literally it's not really in the Bible. The Bible tells you that God was telling Moses to write down like things, but it doesn't specifically tell you that it's like the Bible is what's being written. It's kind of just church tradition that's what is being written. But it's just wrong because it can't be, because it mentions places that didn't exist until after he was dead. It mentions kings in Israel, which the first king wasn't until after he died. So it's just a mess.
Especially in the Old Testament.
Oh yeah.
It's like
This is one of the things that I've actually raised in my debate against a Christian nationalist. Why I don't actually take that to be any kind of a serious threat. And I want to be clear. If I really thought that there was a chance that people would turn this nation into a Christian and into a theocracy, I would be highly concerned. That would be very problematic. But I don't see it to be a real threat. The reason I don't is because one of the things I pointed out in my debate is that when you say Christian nationalist, who gets to decide which version of Christianity are we even talking about? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's so disjointed. They have so many different traditions, so many different denominations that they can't even agree with each other.
Yeah.
So I
But-
think that they have so much work to do within their own system to come to certain agreements that would have to become fundamental before they could really threaten secularism. And I also think that secularism, with the age of enlightenment, secularism secular humanity has made so much progress, especially with science and stuff like that, to just think that people who can't even agree with their neighbor about what their own religion and what their own book says, there's no way that they can overtake a secular society. I just don't see it being possible. And if it was possible, it would be horrible. It would be a massive regression.
I would like to object, but if Joe has something to say, I'll pass over.
How goes it?
I feel like another good one is I feel like related to that is that the Protestants removed the Apocrypha from any of their canon, but the Catholics want at least some of the Apocrypha. Instead of 66 books, they have 88 books, and that's part of the Apocrypha, which I guess, in my opinion, I think the Apocrypha should be a part of the canon because the New Testament authors do allude to parts of the Apocrypha. They don't necessarily straight up quote all of them, but they allude to parts of the Apocrypha. And so that's probably one of the things that really separates Protestants from Catholics, is that one wants some of the Apocrypha and the other doesn't. And so, like, you're right. These people can't agree with each other. There are over 40,000 denominations of Christianity and more if you count those weird little basement cults. So, who's right? Out of all of them, who's right and who's wrong?
Well, in my estimates, it's not the when, it's more the who. Because like the most not common denominator, but the canary in the coal mine is not going to be, well, and I'm not trying to basically pull you guys out, but it's not going to be essentially, well, white people that's going to face the brunt of it. It's basically going to be minorities, and that's how that's like that is the target of oppression that's gonna be hit the hardest, you know. So that's why I say that it is right now that they like Christian nationalists are trying to take over. However, because of the fact that most most of the moderate populace is not exactly like in the effect. It's because it's not minorities just yet that are facing the brunt of it. So, anyways.
Yeah, there's something to keep in mind here, though, and that's that. First of all, people can want to tear down an organization and the structure and not have anything to replace it with whatsoever, and that's happened many times. And when you're talking about nationalists, that there's these Christian nationalists that have the ideal of we want to get rid of secular, governance, that we want our religious governance come in. Do they have a plan to implement that, and which specific religion? And even amongst the white nationalist groups, they may have some Baptists, some Methodists, and whatnot. So once they kind of had a hold of the levers of power, they may not know what to do with them or how to implement their specific religion, but it doesn't mean that they can't utterly destroy the functionality that we already have, and then just not know what to do. Well, which one do we get in power? So there's always that. And in addition to this, we have the problem with, like, we seen with Adolf Hitler, they had churches that were like altars to him, that they did not have crosses inside of those churches, that we just had homages to Hitler. We even had some youth, and this is a great thing to look up, there were youth that was baptized in the name of the Fuhrer, right? So you have these things that they can agree enough that they want Jesus, and that's the only commonality that they have. And that we've already gotten, like, with the Trump administration, we challenge fundamental things that we've always had that keep specific power dynamics. For example, we have the emoluments clause that we had during Jimmy Carter. He had to sell his property. He had to sell his peanut farm. I don't know if y'all know anything about this.
Yep, I know.
Jimmy Carter had to sell his peanut farm because people, they sold peanuts to other countries, or other countries could buy his peanuts from his peanut farm through whatever organization was operating his peanut farm, right? So even if he divested from it, other countries could get money to Jimmy Carter. So he had to totally sell his peanut farm under that ideal of the emoluments clause. But now we have come so enormously away from that any group can influence the presidency, and we don't even bat an eye at breaking the emoluments clause anymore. So the levers of power have been extended out to every group, and that's something that's happened very recently. So I think it's naive to think that they can't take it over because they're not organized enough, or they can't destroy what is a working model because they're not organized enough that they have a specific model that they want to put in place. It's just, that seems a little naive for me.
Well, it's like another example, like if you were talking about past presidents, Nixon, like at the time that he was caught red-handed with Watergate, he had the wherewithal to have shame to basically, instead of just like, to just like, no, I'm gonna fight this, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, I'm peacing out, and like in terms of today, like the Nixon thing, it should have gone ahead regardless of his resignation, but in this in that time frame, it just kind of made sense because it says, look, I know that that's it's gonna drag like the nation down. I'm gonna bow out. So it's like this gentleman's agreement to just to the better angels of our nature. And but the thing is that, well, I call him the orange man, but 40, 45, 47 doesn't really give a damn of what of following the gentleman's agreement of politics. So you know everybody else to be damned. So
Well, I think one of the problems when it comes to essentially what you're talking about with that clause, you're talking about conflict of interest, and the world with technology has shrunk. I mean, everything is interconnected. So conflict of interest becomes so much more difficult to parse out. It's are we ever going to have anybody in power that doesn't have if they're between themselves or their family members. Obviously these presidential candidates, they all come from very affluent backgrounds, one way or the for our modern ones, especially. And so it's going to be, as the world shrinks, everybody's got a finger in everybody else's pie. It's going to be really interesting to see how ethically they actually try and deal with that. The concept of what you were talking about, Robert, I think you're right about something, that you don't necessarily have to have a functioning model to tear down somebody else's model. I agree with you 100% there, but you do have to have enough organization to tear something down that's established, depending on the size and how the structure of what you're trying to destroy. I don't know if they're that organized, although I will say, if another religion rose up, like hypothetically speaking, if Islam rose up and it caused Christians to maybe have a reaction to that and to want to band together to try and, save their religion or whatever. But I don't know if that's even possible. I see Christianity, and I could be wrong about this, but what I see when at least I'm on the internet is that a lot of Christians are moving towards what they call progressive Christianity, to where they start to adopt more of the secular humanist views. It's like with the LGBTQ community, things of that nature. They start to accept more of the scholarly consensus, the critical scholarship. So I know there's a couple of progressive Christian groups that I have interacted with where they will acknowledge there's contradictions in the Bible. They will acknowledge the lack of historicity for like a Moses character, that the flood narrative is allegorical. So it's a massive shift from your biblical literalist paradigm. And I know the Catholic Church itself, which is I think the biggest single Christian denomination, is the Catholic Church still. They have a lot of fluidity because they always allow themselves open to revelation. So the Pope, through the patristics and stuff like that, they can always get a new update from God if need be to save their structure. So we might see a more progressive version of Christianity at some point taking over. I could see something like that, but Christianity as it stands right now seems so disjointed to me.
well,
Yeah, but can you do me one tiny favor right quick? Is it possible to remove this thing off of my face? I'm the only face that's actually showed here.
I don't know.
And it's running over the top of me constantly.
Yeah,
It's not a huge deal. If
you guys
can't.
talk. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
That having been said, I did want to say, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping in. I just wanted to mention, because there is some cohesion that doesn't have to be complete cohesion to move the political poll and to make changes. And one big one is there's a Pew Research poll from 23 and 24 that showed 52% of adults polled that believe that teachers should be able to lead students in prayer. Now, that's the majority of the American consensus thinks that teachers should be able to lead students in prayer. And that it doesn't seem to matter that there is a constitutional problem with that or that it's infringing on someone else's rights.
Yeah.
So if the consensus was able to emerge, we would have people whose constitutional rights were just shat on because the consensus wanted this thing to be so. So I don't think that you have to have people that can completely agree on what the religion is to move these things. Now, have these people agreed or thought about what type of prayer would be getting led in the school? No, they haven't. They have just made the consensus view, and they could do it if it landed on the ballot. They'd do it just as quickly. That they do believe that teachers should lead children and students, and if that could in any way become law, that it would be. So I just wanted to give that little pushback.
Yeah, I mean, like, some of them might think that like one form of prayer is better than another, and then they might get in a disagreement about like which one is better. Like, they haven't thought about what prayer they want in there. They've just thought that they do want one in there, and so like it's yeah. I mean, I see what you mean. That like they don't have to have like an organized system to still add things to it. Where did the
I don't know, he bailed. Maybe I'm too forth. Maybe I talk too much. My apologies.
No, you're fine, but I don't know where the other two people went. Maybe they were raptured. Maybe the rapture did happen.
Oh, shit, we missed it.
Yeah, well, at least we got left behind, so we'll be fine. What is it? Oh, comments. Somebody commented. Joel says he's in big agreement with you.
All right. I just think that, I don't know, and maybe it is when you look at people like Mike Shermer that talk about like this pattern recognition of a threat. Maybe it is some that. Maybe I'm just over recognizing that there is a threat here. Maybe, but it does seem that when you have a majority group, I mean, this is extraordinarily powerful that half of the people would do this or say that they want to see this thing happen and not consider people who don't believe or want, but they don't care. They just do not care. And if half of America can just not care about the minority, then they can do anything.
Yeah.
Well, it's also what unites them essentially on the issues anyway, like social issues. LGBTQ plus is a no because obvious, like, we can't do the nasties on the confines of our own rooms. We're not adults enough, and also like for women's issues, women's rights, Roe v. Wade. Those are the two pillars that got struck down, and that technically, for one reason or another, religious conservatives were essentially united enough to essentially just like be to essentially relentlessly pound it to oblivion until it goes to the Supreme Court and stuff like that. So it doesn't take them to be united as a block. You only need to have issues that they agree on. That is basically just like there's like, we don't want this because of it give us the ick. I wanted to say expletives everybody else, but I don't know if like what Dan ethics wants on his channel, but it's just
no, I don't care as long as everyone's not being derogatory. We're all adults here, and if people want to swear, that's I have a tendency to swear a lot, and I try to really curb my language on my friends' channels just because, out of respect. But in my own life, no, I don't. It doesn't bother me at all. And if anybody is offended by, an F-bomb or something like that, then that's really their deal. As far as I just prefer
offended by it.
Yeah, I just prefer people try to avoid derogatory language, using slurs and stuff like that, because I don't think we need to tear down people groups in our use of language. There's plenty of swear words that we could use that are ambiguous enough, to choose from.
Yeah.
Hey, there's an argument to be made that from a biblical perspective, there is no such thing as a curse word. That there is not a word that it in itself is bad. It's how that word is used. That if it's you, like, you could have a pig, and if you call a person you're a pig, then that in that text it's a cursed word. But the word itself, like American culture has kind of made the word bad, but your older Hebrew and your Greek cultures didn't have bad words. They had some that might be unsavory words, but the ideal of a cursed word, it was tied to using that word Even when you see in the Bible where it says the call no man fool, if you use the word to call someone a fool, it would have been a curse word. But just saying the word fool, it is not. It is not considered a curse word. This is something that's more of a modern idea that the word itself is bad, and that just wasn't the case biblically.
Well, I think it's like stuff from the 90s, but I digress. It's like, for me, English curse words, quote unquote, don't really matter much to me because I'm French Canadian. But it's like throwing an F-bomb within my cultural context of it is kind of pretty, like, considered tame.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, because it doesn't really mean much. Although because of the fact that we're a minority, linguistic minority, we kind of have to, check ourselves and stuff like that. But it wasn't like common in high school. Sometimes that we would just kind of throw an F-bomb or just say shit or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Speaking of that word shit, the Greek word that Paul used when now King James translates it as garbage, where it says that all of my works are as filthy rags, they are garbage before the Lord. The better translation of that was actually shit, and it was considered a very risque word at the time. He likely, we would have seen this as him saying that they are shit before the Lord. Okay,
with an E or what?
What we would have. I'm sorry.
With an E or what? Shite.
Oh no, it was not in English. It was Greek, but the word would have been equivalent to. The King James translated it as garbage, but it was considered a vulgar word. But it wouldn't have been a curse word unless Paul would have called someone that. And the closest thing that we have to an action such as that is actually Jesus, where he did not call someone dogs, or I think it starts with a K. But he said, he compared the Gentiles to dogs. Does that make sense? Like if he would have said Gentiles are dogs, this could have in that text been a curse word, but he didn't. He said he did a comparative thing. Is it meat to throw the thing before dogs, your food before dogs or something? But anyway, this was very close to using something just like calling someone a pig or calling someone a insert derogatory that he did about Gentiles, comparing them to dogs. But I think the translation was considered, there's two words. There was one for dog, and then there was one for a young dog or a pup. And I think the word that he used was for a young pup, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time since I've read on this subject.
And Jesus agrees in Matthew 5:21-22. He says, "You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, you fool, you will be liable to the fire of hell." So Jesus straight up says that if you call somebody a fool, you're at risk of going to hell. So I say that to Christians when they call me fools. I'm like, oh, so you haven't read Matthew 5:22? I see.
But he doesn't have a problem with the word itself. It's just calling someone that thing.
Right. It's the application.
And we see this repeatedly.
It's true, and it's common sense too. The application is more important. Although I do have some really fundamentalist friends and family members that it doesn't matter. You can explain until you're blue in the face that, listen, saying fuck is not the same thing as saying fuck you. There are two different worlds there, but it doesn't matter. As soon as they start to formulate the F in that word, that you see the hair on the back of their neck start to stand up. But I do need to start winding things down a little bit. So I want to give everyone a chance to get a final word and promote any upcoming work. Johnny, I'm going to give you the last final word, so stay in here. But Chris, why don't we start with you and just if there's any projects you're into or any thoughts that you have, let's let you go first. Chris?
I don't have any projects or anything. It's just a guy surfing the YouTube space. So yeah. Anyways, but thank you for having me, and catch you later.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate your input. Roberts, also known as SkepticPhilosophy, for those who don't know. I see your name's coming up in the chat. Did you want to promote your new channel? I really enjoyed the conversation we had today. Any final thoughts or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm doing a video every Saturday. We'll be doing a live chat. I hope to have different guests on. I'd like to at some point get some preachers or pastors on. I think I can have a civil debate with anybody to the degree that they could keep it civil. I don't have a problem with talking with anyone, but I'll be doing that every Saturday at 2:00.
Excellent. I really enjoyed being on your channel. I thought you did a great job as a host. I've been a guest on a few channels now, and it's not always quite so organized. And it doesn't have to be. I'm always honored when people ask to share time with me and stuff like that, and invite me in. I do see it very much like I'm being invited into someone's living room when they invite me to their channel. So I really appreciate you reaching out to me. I thought it was a really good conversation. I'm a little remiss that we didn't do it after my debate because I had so much I had to kind of keep to myself. But maybe you'll return me the favor and either you'll have me on again or you'll come onto my channel and we'll after my debate, and then we'll have another discussion about objective morality. Really enjoyed that.
Absolutely.
Johnny, do you want to? We're going to plug your show next Saturday here. Is there anything you wanted to, other projects you have coming up, or any thoughts you wanted to share about just anything at all?
Make sure you check out Objective Ethics' channel. He does a lot of really cool debates and stuff on there. And next Saturday, stay tuned for next Saturday, because next Saturday we'll be doing a talk on messianic prophecies and why Jesus didn't fulfill any of them. And this will, I guess, most of it will just include the supposed prophecies the New Testament authors try to claim he fulfilled, even though they're either not prophecies or they're prophecies that aren't even messianic. So it's funny because it seems like the authors just had to make up prophecies because the real Jesus didn't actually fulfill anything.
Yeah, Johnny, when you said that, and this is something that I had, give me 1 second to respond to this. So the debate that I'm having with Mark Reed is supposedly, we don't have a hard date yet, but we're targeting the middle of January. I just wanted to get through the holiday season because holidays are busy for everyone. But yeah, so the Mark Reed debate between himself, he and myself is going to be on the Raging Tomato. Seems like they've agreed to do it, to host the debate, and we're targeting mid-January. And I'll definitely be upgrading or updating everybody when I get a hard date for that. I'm sure Mark Reed is going to push it. In fact, I know he's really looking forward to it because I heard him when I was just leaving work the other day. I was finally able to catch one of his videos, and he actually mentioned the debate. So I know that he's really excited about it too. He knows he's going to kick my butt, but that's all right. It's going to be it'll be a really good practice for me. Johnny, so you mentioned something here. Because when you really want to get into each of these prophecies, like we're going to get into the virgin birth prophecy with Isaiah 7 and 8.
Yeah.
It's really beneficial for the audience to really hear all of the historical elements so that we can really, so that the listener can understand how we know for sure that this isn't a prophecy. And so I really want to do a deep dive into this. And if we try and tackle multiple prophecies, the show would go for 2 days straight. But I think we should do, and it's up to you, obviously, something you might consider. Maybe we should make a short series out of it and tackle like one prophecy each episode. Yeah, if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah, sure. That'll work for me. I have no problem with that at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I think because there's a few prophecies in particular, because we can't go through every prophecy because depending on what denomination or what individual Christian you're talking about, I've heard some Christians claim there's over 300 messianic prophecies in there. There isn't even 300 mentions of a Messiah. And I just can't even, I don't know where these people get these random numbers from, but I do know there are a handful of prophecies that are really well known. The virgin birth is one of them. Obviously, the suffering servant is another big one.
Who's his real
the prophecy in Psalms? I think it's Psalms 119, if I remember right. So there's a number of the prophecies that are pretty standard fare, and we could definitely break one of those down each episode. So if you're interested in doing that, we'll see how next weekend goes, and if it's because it really, I'm counting on you to do all the legwork for that. It's really in your wheelhouse, something you want to talk about. So I do have the fundamental knowledge to go over it. If for some reason something happens, I can still discuss it myself, but I don't feel like digging up all that information. I'm going to let you pretty much do the talking there.
Yeah.
So then next Saturday, it looks like we're going to do that show. I think if we could target, the problem is I'm trying to avoid everybody else's streaming schedule. I don't know if that's going to be possible. You're Central Time, right? What I might do is see about launching it. Let's see, about like 1 o'clock Central.
All right.
Is that a good time for you next Saturday?
That'd be fine. Yeah.
It's a little early for me because I'm on the West Coast and I work very late Friday nights usually. But you're going to be doing most of the show. I don't have to really, by the time I get enough coffee in me to be able to get a straight sentence out, it'll be 11:30, 12 o'clock. I'll be halfway through the show. But so I'll be leaning on you. But yeah, let's target that for next Saturday. Excuse me. So if we're talking about 1 o'clock Central, we're talking about 2 o'clock Eastern. And then we'll be here on this channel. We're going to go over the virgin birth narrative. And then we'll probably try to open up the panel afterwards. And if anybody has any feedback or any discussions, I don't know if we'll get any Christians in here who want to defend that prophecy. If you guys want to reach out to somebody, we could always reach out to G-Man, and see if he and see if he wants to come in and try and defend that. But yeah, be more than welcome to do that. So I appreciate everybody stopping by. This has been a really exciting to see this, that we're getting so much interaction so early. A lot of what I've been doing has just been testing out my equipment. So I've really come unprepared. I haven't had a whole lot to really discuss, but we've still been getting a lot of interaction, and I appreciate that. So that's really a credit to all of you. The people I've met in this community, I'm really impressed. You guys are all very intelligent, very well read. I think I made a comment earlier, even on either on this channel or on Skeptic Philosophy's channel earlier, that most atheists and agnostics that I know far more about the Bible than the average Christian, which is kind of ironic if you think about it, So good on you guys.
And it's unfortunate because it just goes to show like the level of indoctrination that these people have been through, that they've essentially been told, don't question it, don't look into it, just listen to what we tell you. And so these people grow up to like 20, 30, and they haven't actually even read the Bible for themselves. They've read the parts they've been told to read, and they haven't read anything more than that. My advice to any Christians that are out there right now that might be watching this, read the Old Testament first and then the New Testament, and see if the New Testament aligns with the Old Testament. Don't read the New Testament and then go back and try to fit everything into the Old Testament. You should be seeing if what the Old Testament says actually aligns with what the New Testament is telling you, because the unfortunate reality is that it isn't. The New Testament butchers the Old Testament. It destroys it. I mean, it's not good at all. It completely butchers the prophecies. It gets simple history facts wrong. I mean, it's not good. Like, I feel like a good example of this is, who is the father of Jeconiah? Well, I don't remember exactly the verse. It's First Chronicles. First Chronicles tells us that his father is Jehoiakim. I'm gonna butcher that name, but Matthew thinks that it's Josiah, and the reason he thinks it's Josiah is because Josiah is Jeconiah's grandfather. He skipped a person in the genealogy. He just skipped his father and thought his grandfather was his father. He just made a mistake. But it goes to show how the New Testament butchers the Old Testament. It makes a bunch of mistakes about it. So what Christians should be doing is reading the Old Testament first to get an understanding of it, and then read the New Testament to see if it actually aligns, because it really doesn't.
Yeah, that's good advice. There's, when it gets into the lineages, it's actually really interesting because Matthew uses a lot of numerology. Mm-hmm. If you actually break down the book of Matthew, you can see it's pretty evident that he really uses a lot of numerology. In fact, Mark, his structure, in fact, David Carrier does a great job of breaking that down with Mark's numerology, the way he actually structures his entire gospel. It's really brilliant. And that's one thing where you understand how these books can be so convincing, because despite the flaws that we're able to see in hindsight with modern critical scholarship and our understanding of history and stuff like that, it seems kind of easy to pick this stuff apart. But if you're talking about writing these things 2,000 years ago, these authors are absolutely brilliant in their own right, And one thing I always advise people, one thing I did when I was going to college and when I actually attended seminary, I was studying the history of the period as well as studying the texts themselves. And when you actually get a better understanding of the broad view of the actual history and what was going on at the time, then it makes it all, you could just put it all together. The pieces just literally fall into place, but you have to be willing to look at things critically, and you have to be willing to, do some actual research, because it does take time. All these things take time. So, all right. Very good show, you guys. I appreciate the participation. Yeah. I look forward to seeing you guys next Saturday.
I had fun. Thanks for inviting me. I look forward to our talk Saturday.
Okay, everyone, great show. Thank you so much for watching. And try to maybe work on some graphics or some overlays to make this look a little bit more fancy. I don't know if I have it done by next weekend, but try and get the quality of this stream up a little bit and moving forward. So appreciate any feedback you guys have. Feel free to reach out to me. Maybe I could get some Discord links posted in these. And if anybody wants to plug their own channel, you guys be sure to reach out to me. I'm happy to help promote whatever's going on in the community. Okay. Thank you very much. You guys have a great weekend.